Buenas tardes a todos y gracias por acompañarnos.
Good afternoon and thank you for being here. I am Belén Espejo, in charge of employment and people in Telefónica. We are going to talk about the new ways of working in the future. The world is changing and the employment is changing too. So you've heard about this great resignment that was born in the United States, and we see that since April 2020, more than 19 million people have abandoned massively and voluntarily their jobs. Why? Well, there are different theories. One talks about the decisions, delayed decisions during pandemic. They couldn't make decisions, so that's why they are making decisions now. People were exhausted under a lot of pressure and stress. Another fundamental reason has been that during the pandemic and the lockdown, people had time to think about the fact of being happy with what they are doing, if they had a life apart from their jobs, and that's why they made these radical decisions. And also the loss of freedom when incorporating again to the professional lives in face-to-face after remote working. So this phenomena that was born in the States is also happening in Spain. So we see that many advisors and the companies devoted to see the trends of the future are telling us about important transformations in the way we work. So these new models are equal with the same rights and responsibilities. So people working in a hybrid model or an on-site model. Can we think of other spaces? A week of 4 days, 4 working days. So what happens if you work remotely? You lose the cohesion, and this increases the turnover, and people abandon their jobs. Will we be able to work with robots when jobs start being automatized and things that can be done by robots? And also the well-being of the employee, their psychic, their physic, and the happiness at work. Are the companies concerned? Their employees are happy and they develop their jobs in the best scenario that is possible. And then we see employees who are very demanding. These people who abandon their jobs wanted to find a better scenario where they can do conciliation and disconnect, and they are truly valued, and where they feel happy. And undoubtedly, this is a very important challenge for organizations. They face a new way to work in which the employee needs to be in the center of the decisions, technological and strategical decisions, taking into account the situation of the employees. And also we need to build relationships based on trust, respect, and value of people, and also to care for the employees so that their commitment is higher, so that they can give their best version, and also to reinvent the way we communicate, and this asynchronous communication. So the workplace is a moment, it's not only a place, and it's not the same for the employee than for the employer. So we need to find these meeting spaces where this communication can be done successfully. Also, we need to incorporate the people who are in a hybrid format, working remotely. We need to generate these immersive spaces where we can develop the activity with high productivity. And also with the employees as drivers of change. So a new culture and a shared vision by all the actors in the organization who know the vision and work and walk hand in hand. So our companies realizing this, yes, and they are adapting to the circumstances, and we have these hybrid organizations or liquid organizations that value the employees. They are a fundamental capital in the organizations, and in this sense they give flexibility, timetable, and the way they communicate to each other, the tools they are going to use. And they are companies that look for simple models and no hierarchical and open and transparent communication. And in this sense, they are simple and they can adapt to change very easily. And they will be able to take advantage of the opportunities of this changing market. And undoubtedly, we are living in a technological moment that is unique because the behaviors are changing, the preferences are changing, the priorities are changing. Also, the working spaces, they are opening up, reaching homes, and technology is mature enough to give support to these changes and to boost these changes so that this new culture is fully consolidated. So how can technology help us? Well, basically in three main areas. So the technology surrounding the employees with tools, devices, and also to allow them to be the protagonist. And also an important part that is arising is all these different applications and tools in human resources that are going to facilitate the life of the employees and being in the center of the organizations, belong to the decision-making process, and also making their development. And then finally, because training and digital capability has become a pillar for the companies. We have the training of the employees. And devices and services. We are talking about a job that puts the employee in the center and surrounding them with all they need, light devices, portable devices that allow them to work anywhere and anytime and have access to their jobs. We are talking about collaborative apps that allow them to work in teams and build something together, participate in a corporate project. We are also talking about all these tools that allow them to manage their jobs in an autonomous way. And in a very simple way, with self-management tools that facilitate their lives. They can solve problems on their own. These tools that are monitoring the situation and forecast any problems that may arise. And also we are talking about tools that facilitate and help them to personalize the activities that they develop in the organization. And we need to remember the tools that are born in human resources. So, for example, a job where we have people in the organization and the people working from home, and we have new needs we need to satisfy. For example, people need to have a control and a follow-up and a centralized point in which they can manage any activities of their everyday life. For example, they can examine and also to allow people to develop themselves in the organization. For example, that allow them to control their working time. And also from their homes and from the organization. And also that will allow me to measure the productivity. And we need to contribute and also to measure this contribution, and also other tools that will allow us to keep these teams together and give them innovative ways to communicate each other, to relate to each other, and in a very hybrid environment. And also very relevant, all these tools, and also the tools that come from the training. Yes, thank you very much, Belén. So we are going to focus on training, which is one of the pillars that she mentioned. My name is Pilar and I am in charge of education vertical, which is one of the areas in which we are working with a lot of intensity, because as you can see, there is a lot of technology that can help us to learn in a very radical way. And the world as you know it, with COVID, changes have changed, and the way we understand the learning has changed a lot. These are some figures of the future in 2025 in which the jobs are going to change. And in 2025, 85 million of the jobs that we have nowadays are going to change, and they are going to be substituted by other 97 million new jobs. This means that most of the things we do, it's going to be impacted by this technological change. And there are some other figures that McKinsey and company says that 375 million workers will have to update their skills. And apart from this update, we need to update the skills perceived by the employee. For example, 30% of the participants in a survey said that they had to update their own capabilities. So there is a constant need to change, and training is something that will be required and in our everyday lives. So how do I understand training? Well, up to now, it is a training that is focused on the beginning with our intense university, post-degree education training, and then it's like our insurance policy for the rest of our lives. Now education is understood as a more flexible thing, and during our years we can expand our education. So this is why in this new context, just to give you some figures, big companies are investing in capability building programs for staff. Amazon, PwC, AT&T, and Accenture investing millions of dollars in order to do this reskilling, and so that this talent is recycled. What happens in Spain? In Spain, there is an interest towards these programs, and in Spain, most of the companies think that these programs are very relevant. 95% of the companies prefer to train instead of recruiting. And so recruiting an employee is 6 times more expensive than training someone who already is in the company, who knows the company. So it's always more profitable to train than to recruit. And this is well perceived by the companies in Spain. And 85% think that this training has to have a direct effect in the improvement of the processes of the company in less than 1 year. But there is still a long way to go. We need to identify the needs of the staff. 63% of the companies listed in the IBEX 35 know that there is a lack, but they still don't know which this lack is. So we all know that jobs are going to change, but we still don't understand how. And we still need to understand which are the skills. So despite the fact that 66% of the companies don't know it, 75 already does some training actions for the employees. And another figure is that companies think that 30% of their employees, 1/3, need re-skill in an urgent way. If they don't do it, they are going to have a negative impact on the process and the growth of the company. And these data are very important. So not having this training is going to have an impact on the growth of the company. So which are the trends? How has the training changed? Well, first of all, the impact that Belén mentioned about COVID. Now, training is hybrid, basically done online, a digitalization of the training. This digitalization has revolutionized these other trends. It is more digital, and then training has to be accessible, secure, multi-platform, and accessible from smartphones and PCs and laptops. And it has to be secure, it has to be verifiable. And now we need some technological tools that allow us to verify everything, flexible and adapted. One of the main advantages of digitalization and using platforms in order to do these remote courses is that they can be personalized. And the learning, once we digitalize everything, can be personalized. And it is also a very open training. So we not only collaborate with the professor, but also between the students, and creating digital spheres in which we can work in a different way. And of all these trends, we can underline one. With all the different tools that are being modified, the digital component after the pandemic, and the training programs. So here in Telefónica, before it was on site, and 92% of the training is online, based the 33% before the pandemic. So the change is so dramatic, and 91% of the companies prefer to do this training online. And the platforms have exploited in the market, and it is not only more motivating and more interesting for the employer, and also the costs are reduced. It is more profitable because there is a reduction of the costs of 50-70%. So it is way more profitable for the employer. So in this context, and knowing the situation, what do we know so that the program is successful? Well, we think that we need to create in different fronts. First of all, culture and methodology. So the training program has to be in line with the values and the culture of the company. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to implement it. And moreover, the environment has to be adequate. The tools, technological tools, and also all the environment you're going to give to the employees so that they can learn in a very motivating and flexible and safe way. And then finally, the spaces, the learning spaces are very relevant. And They are going to be a tool to boost the online training. We think that the training is going to go towards digital learning, but we need learning spaces as well that will allow us to do some experimentation in order to work with the technology. So out of these three pillars, culture and methodology, we strongly believe that there are different elements. And the first one, how can we work with companies, helping them to design this plan? So big data here is very useful, the profiles of the users, the needs, the preferences, and also we need to do an analysis of these jobs of the company and how we create they're going to evolve, because they are evolving very, very fast. So it is fundamental to stop and do this design of the plan. So here we have the foundations, and then external, for example. And the support based on the technology and how it is evolving. And also the e-learning platform, which is fundamental. And also the platforms need to integrate different technologies. So this is going to be fundamental. And this will allow us to create some communities and forums and functionalities, and the evaluation between the different students, the knowledge forums, opening up new ideas and new opportunities, and then the accompanying process. And the program about the needs of the professors, and also following the culture, finding the bottlenecks, etc. And big data is going to be very useful, and all the visualization tools in order to make decisions. And then in the second block, the employee, which is the fundamental one, we have different elements. First one is the contents, because in the end the contents are the backbone, and they have to contribute to the company and to the employee. And here you have seen that 5G is everywhere, and we have the bartender and many other aspects, and it's also on the possibilities of the on the edge, in order to recreate these immersive spaces, so that the knowledge is inside a place in the metaverse, and you can see what's there, and then you can find all contents in an immersive way. Then you can learn better, and it allows you to generate contents that are more appealing, more motivating. And with the different applications in the medical world, in Telefónica, for example, the visualization of different architectures and different elements. Thanks to this technology, they are very rich. And also, we can have the possibility, and the professor maybe is somewhere else, and thanks to these goggles, we can do an holographic presence, and this way means that we can do an experience, and otherwise it would be very distant. So the technology here opens up new technologies. The second element is the platforms. We've already talked about this. It is fundamental to have it because it will allow us to have flexibility and mobility, and also adapting the different ways to learn. And also the virtual spaces, the gamification is very interesting as well, and it's going to mobilize the way in which we work. So learning has to be fun, and it has to be a motivating one. And we can use some gamification aspects, and also following milestones and generating different expectations, and also more fun and more appealing. Also the verification, and sometimes you need to obtain a test and you need to certify, and sometimes it cannot be done in a on-site way, so you need to verify, and also how everything is done. We have different tools that allow us to do the certifications, and with this biometric recognition and identifying that there is no one surrounding them, they are not browsing what they shouldn't be browsing, and also we can use the blockchain technology, and one of them would be the training file. And also we wanted to talk about the spaces and reinforcing the model, and they are going to require some elements, and also the connectivity, also having different devices, some of them individual, and will allow us to have different users, and all the screens and the technology, like for example the screens, etc., and all the devices that will allow us to have a security. So all these elements are going to be there in these flexible models, and they are fundamental. And we didn't want to finish this about technology and training. And also with everything that Belén mentioned. So we have many more possibilities using technology, 5G, so that learning is rich and innovative, and it can contribute with more thanks to this. So it is a new era for knowledge. So thank you very much for this space. It's been a pleasure to be here with all of you.